Hello everyone. Today I will be teaching you about the properties of a parallelogram. First, let's define a parallelogram. A parallelogram is a quadrilateral with two pairs of opposite parallel sides which are also congruent. The angle between these pairs of sides does not matter at all. Here is a basic parallelogram. One thing to note right away is that the diagonals bisect one another. So in this diagram, each diagonal is split exactly in half by the other one. This property in quadrilaterals only applies to parallelograms, so if you have a quadrilateral where both diagonals bisect one another, you can immediately say that it's a parallelogram. Another property of parallelograms is that, like all quadrilaterals, its angles add up to 360 degrees. Parallelograms have the additional property that their opposite sides, meaning angles that are in opposite corners, are equal. The two angles on the end of the short diagonal and the two on the end of the long diagonal are pairs of equal angles. Also, any two angles on the same side are supplementary, meaning they add up to 180 degrees. In this case, that refers to each pair of angles circled in blue. One thing to note is that even though the diagonals look like they bisect the angles, they do not necessarily have to, and in this case, they do not. The diagonals also look perpendicular, but do not have to, and in this case, they are not. Now, let's look at how to find the area of a parallelogram. To find the area, you might have to do a little figure rearranging. In this diagram, I have cut off the end of the parallelogram to make it perpendicular at that point, and moved the resulting triangle to the other end to form a rectangle. The area of the rectangle, which you probably know, is base times height. This applies to the parallelogram as well. The area of a parallelogram is the base times the perpendicular height. Lastly, let's look at how to prove that a quadrilateral is a parallelogram. A quadrilateral will be a parallelogram if any of several conditions are fulfilled. The first is if both pairs of sides are parallel. The second is if both pairs of opposite angles are congruent. The third is if both pairs of opposite sides are congruent. The fourth one is if one pair of opposite sides is both parallel and congruent. The fifth is the previously mentioned property that the diagonals bisect one another, and the last one is if one angle is supplementary to both angles that it shares a side with. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next week for another math video.